As the regular season is fast approaching and Montreal is trying to maximize cap space, a sneaky roster move is going to happen, which will likely involve sending Arber Xhekaj down to Laval prior to Wednesday, but it's not what you guys think. We'll be diving all into that. Plus, as this season is approaching, like I said, Hughes and Jesse Gorton, they are talking today to make those final roster cuts. Plus, Jesse, we have some great comments from Lane, Hutson, and Logan Mailloux on their future with Montreal, so stick around for all that coming up in this episode of Habs Digest. But guys, it's Sunday. We're rapidly approaching our goal of 15,000 subscribers. We're less than 250 subscribers away. If you're part of the 50%, half the people watching this video that have not hit subscribe, if you could hit that button, we'd really, really appreciate it. Not going to dwell on that, Jesse. Let's get right into the video. And I mean, we know the future is bright, but Lane Hutson and Logan Mailloux were asked in an article for NHL.com some interesting questions about, what they want to do. And they both were very much like, yeah, we want to stay here. We want to make a difference, make an impact in Montreal. But to me, Jesse, it was mostly what they said and how self-aware they were in terms of their ability and what they need to do to get better that impressed me. So to start with Lane, he said, it's hard for everyone. There's some real talented players in the NHL, and I think sticking to the way I've been defending my whole life, using my speed and stick, just really learning what works, what doesn't, that's only going to help me. As he knows, defense is going to be a big part of his game to stay in the NHL long term. And St. Louis said, I think it's consistency with him, right? Presenting him with challenges. But when it gets to Logan Mailloux, he said, what I learned last year is that consistency keeps you around, and that's one of the biggest aspects. Besides being in the AHL last year, you kind of wonder what that jump is like, then kind of getting a taste of it. I think that's going to help moving forward, Jesse. They're both very aware. For Mailloux, it's that consistency, that ability to make better decisions. For Hutson, his defense is going to make a big difference. I really loved pretty much everything they had to say in this interview.
Yeah, definitely. And so nice for Hutson now. It's just a formality, waiting to hear that he's achieved his goal of making the Montreal Canadiens. Just so happy to have as a player that, in his words, saying that he's thrilled to be here and that there's really these better days kind of coming up ahead. And kind of in that recent, interview, he kind of said like a little bit of what's his key to success. Like as he was approaching training camp and everything, he said for himself, like, well, you always have to think that there's a chance that you can make it, is really what he's referring to. And I think that that's just such a great insight, not just for himself individually, but also like what he brings to the team. Like he's going to bring that to the Montreal Canadiens every night of, well, you have to feel like there's a chance of winning. And as long as there's that chance, then we're going to go out all out and really do that. Right. And for being like such like a dynamic player, Josh, like as Martin St. Louis says, just recently, like for just being so consistent that it's kind of like a night in, night out type of thing like that, where it's like, we haven't really seen an off game from him, really. True. Like he's just going to shine out in basically any type of game. And basically, like, it's interesting to look at his production, really, when we're kind of forecasting next year. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but hype, for Lane is definitely justified. Like 2 points in those 2 games he was at in the NHL last year, and then he had 2 points and then 3 games in the preseason. We're seeing like already that penchant for getting points at the NHL level. Like this guy is not wasting any time. In fact, he loves the competition here in Montreal, just bringing out the best in him. So obviously so nice to see that Lane really believes in the bright future that the Habs have.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lane Hutson, I mean, he's got people clamoring for him to be on the PP1 already. I do think maybe that's a little bit early, but everything that we've seen from him has been so good. And again, he's been saying all the right things as well. He knows where he needs to improve upon, and he's going to have a chance to play, I think, with a lot of different defensive partners, including he's probably going to want to play with Mailloux at some point once Mailloux makes that jump up to the NHL. There's going to be a lot of great stuff, but all things considered, the team's been doing everything they can, and it's great to see that the players seem to be very on board as well. But let's quickly move into the next topic, and I want to talk about some of these decisions that are going to have to be made because there are some people still clamoring for Logan Mailloux to make the team this year over someone like Justin Barron, even though Barron is no longer waiver exempt. But, Renaud Lavoie tweeted this out, basically saying, it's going to be interesting to see who's going to start the season for the Habs, because these decisions are not going to be easy, Jesse, and it includes some cap considerations that we'll get into in the next section of the video. You won't want to miss that. Great article that'll be linked down below for that, by the way. But basically saying this is last night after the game. Management's going to meet tomorrow, which is today as of the recording of this video, to see who's going to stay, and it's not crystal clear. But that's not a bad thing, as he says, Jesse, and I'm very much on board with this state of mind. Like, it's never a bad thing to have so many guys that you are having a tough decision to say who to keep, who to go. Because if everyone was kind of lower level, you might just be like, whatever, it doesn't really matter. We'll probably be shuffling these guys in and out anyway. But at this point for Montreal, it's genuinely like expectations are there. Guys are going to have to stay or go. And the number one guy, again, we talk about him all the time, but it's Oliver Kapanen. This guy is at the top of the discussions. Even you mentioned yesterday, like there's a world where he could climb his way up in the lineup super fast, or maybe not, or maybe Wall goes all the way up, but he had a bad game, right? So you got to think today with Hughes and Gorton, Jesse, like, I can't imagine this is easy because genuinely there have been so many good guys. Having this depth is something that I don't think I'm used to. And, I just hope they're not stressing out too much.
No, definitely. And you have to feel like right now, like even with that injury to Laine, that the fact that there's still this competition, we're having these questions is a great thing, right? Because I think that Kapanen, he's earned his spot on this team. Like he's not going to be on that second line right away, but Joshua Waugh is going to have to be on his game, which again is like this competition is going to continue. It's going to bring out the best in these young players because there is a world where Kapanen, very early on in the season, if he keeps playing well, he will absolutely get promoted. We can see what he's capable of doing, Josh. Like I know you probably have your own roster projections. I have my own as well. But I think there's probably a world where it's like, obviously Pezzetta is still going to be on there. We got Heidemann. I think probably making the team as well. Like Guhle will probably slip on there as well, for that 23-man roster. But the fact that we don't have like those 3 goalie rotations, it kind of allows for a little bit more of that depth there. I think, for that bottom pairing, I think we're looking at rotation of Struble, Bering, and Xhekaj. Obviously, we'll get more into the implications of how that'll fully work out. But for opening night, that's who I expect to be the bottom pairing. Really the guys in question so far on this team.
I think that's a great take. And even though Adam Engstrom has looked so comfortable, especially in that last game, I think he looked really, really good. Like, again, one game's not enough to swing people's opinions on, oh, well, now Joshua was not a second line player and now Adam Engstrom's on the team. No, it's not going to happen, right? Not in one night, especially not in the preseason. But, that bottom 3, Jesse, that kind of third pairing and 7th defenseman, like, there's not many teams in the league that have that kind of luxury there with a guy as solid as Struble who can lay the body, who has offensive potential, a guy like Xhekaj who has just been almost a savior for this team in a lot of ways, like the guy to go defend your guys and also still be able to score a goal, here and there. That's the thing. Yeah. And then Justin Barron, who again, in a full season's pace last year, would have been on pace for 12 goals. So having that kind of luxury down at the bottom of the D pairings, I think is going to be really, really interesting to follow. But let us know your thoughts down below. Again, we're saying this every day. Tomorrow, we're going to know for sure. This is your last chance to get your predictions in. Jesse, final thing, though, today. Want to jump into this. And there's going to be some sneaky roster handling. Now, this is spawned by an article for rg.org from Marco D'Amico, and this will be linked down below. And even before you watch this section of the video, we'll be covering a bit of it, but I do suggest you go read it because, again, there's some fantastic work. Marco's always really, really good with cap stuff. So let's just get right into this, though, Jesse. And the report basically says, don't be surprised that the Canadiens send Arber Xhekaj to Laval, but it's not what you think. Yes, that is the headline, but it's not what you think. In essence, saying the Habs are in a complicated situation. Now that they got Laine, the Habs are $2 million over the salary cap. And you could just put Price or Laine on LTIR, but the Habs don't want to do that. They've been very adamant, Jesse, to hold that off as long as they can to maximize your space. Because if you're under the cap to start the season, and then you put your contracts in LTIR, you get a lot more room to work with moving forward. So in essence, he said, like last season, the Habs will likely have to send Xhekaj to Laval. Because once you have Raphael Harvey-Pinard, you put him on LTIR, and you send Xhekaj down, because you can start with anywhere from 20 players all the way up to 23. You don't have to have exactly 23. So if you put Xhekaj on paper down in Laval, you maximize the possible space for LTIR. You'll be just under the cap with specifically Xhekaj's cap hit. So then you can put Laine and Price on LTIR, gain as much space as you can, and then Montreal will have a lot more flexibility. So very, very interesting stuff, Jesse. I love to discuss this stuff before the season. And you got to think that Hughes and Gorton, I mean, even though this is not necessarily confirmed what's going to happen, I think they really know their way around the cap to maximize every little bit of value for Montreal.
Yeah, Kent Hughes and Jeffrey Gorton definitely doing their homework when it comes down to this. For sure. But, you have to feel like Xhekaj, again, this will be a paper transaction. This guy's a team player, so he's definitely going to understand. But there have been some rumblings, right, Josh, like in camp, of people still wanting more for Xhekaj. Mm-hmm. For me, I don't really see it. For me, he's there every time. For sure, we know that, for sure it's walking a fine line with the discipline. But for me, last year, we saw a growth where he was a little bit undisciplined to becoming more disciplined. He did become that guy. Until in the regular season, I see that going. I'm not going to have a problem with Xhekaj's play. Like, for me, there was a little bit of an issue. He addressed it. Until that's different in the regular season when it really matters, that's a complete non-issue. We have to remember Xhekaj is super valuable on this team, will be in the lineup for opening night roster. Because of the thousands of positive things that this guy really brings to the team. It's just so many things. Like, again, like he's like Lane Hutson in a way where it's nobody else quite does what he does on the Habs. He's, Xhekaj is very much the same way. He just has that specific set of skills, as one would say, like that nobody else on this team has. He's an assassin rather, a hitman in his own right, you know? So it's like those niche type of players, you know, and again, like, there's going to be a place for them. Like last night, he had a solid game, I think, in a lot of ways. And it's just about that offense coming more. I think we want to see a little bit more him getting fed for those one-timers. Like his wrist shot is great, but we want to see the slappers, right? Because he has a punch. I want to see him lean in a little bit more into that.
Hardest
but absolutely, this guy's good. Absolutely, he's going to be stable on this team for years to come.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really awesome to see what he can bring this year. And again, basically, this is a PSA to say don't be scared if you see him down to Laval. You'll see the tweet come out, and then you'll almost certainly see us and some other people tweeting out saying, hey, this is just going to be a paper transaction. Montreal had to do a little bit of it last year. Don't panic. Don't worry. Now, whether they do some stuff with other players, you know, I've seen people put out meme tweets saying Habs have waived Dvorak, Habs have waived Josh Anderson to get him off the team. I don't expect that kind of thing, but Xhekaj gets sent down. Just know that it's going to be for this. But let us know your thoughts on all this down below. How Montreal can maximize their cap space and what you think they might do with this kind of big cap space, especially while Line is still out. You still got that freedom with Price's contract as well. We'd love to know what your guys' thoughts are. But for now, that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, guys. We're so close to the goal, and if you could help us out, we would sincerely appreciate it. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.